I'm Angela Washko, and I'm the director of Workhorse Queen. Workhorse Queen is a feature-length documentary film. It follows Ed Popel, a full-time telemarketing manager in Rochester, New York, who, by surprise, sees his drag queen alter ego, Mrs. Kasha Davis, get cast on season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race. So the film follows what Ed's life and career were like before the show, during his run on the show, and how his life totally transformed by being on this reality TV show and being thrust into a full-time career in the entertainment industry in his late 40s.
That is so awesome. So how did you become friends with Ed, and how did you guys cross paths, and how was it approaching him to say, hey, I want to do a documentary?
Yeah, so I didn't know Mrs. Kasha Davis or Ed Popel personally before. So I was really somebody who had watched the show, both loved the show, was also critical of certain parts about the show. And, Mrs. Kasha Davis really stood out to me as this kind of housewife persona. And I thought it was this, as a feminist artist, I really thought that she was like this homage to women's domestic labor and sort of saw this potentially like activist bent to what Mrs. Kasha Davis was doing. Took a closer look at what we didn't get to see on reality television and found so much more. So I sent Ed an email. I said, hi, I'm a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, which I found helps when I'm trying to get someone to say yes to something. And I said, I'm interested in your story. I'm interested in all of the things that you do that we didn't get to see on the show. I'm interested in the variety show you've started for children in Rochester. I'm interested in the whole Rochester drag community, who got on the show, who didn't. Within like 10 minutes, I had an answer of like, yes, from Mrs. Kasha Davis. And then I flew out to Rochester. I went to one of Mrs. Kasha Davis's shows, and I had breakfast with Ed and his husband the next morning, and also gave Ed some cupcakes because it was his birthday.
That is awesome.
And that's how we started.
You need to give someone cupcakes to make them say yes, to a documentary. So where did the process of, okay, we're going to start here in the documentary, then we're going to move here and move there, because what I really like about it is that you really capture who Mrs. Kasha Davis is, as a whole person. And then who Ed is, too. So where did the mindset and the process start?
Well, I'd become quite obsessed with Mrs. Kasha Davis, long before I decided to make the film. I had watched every single, and there are hundreds of these YouTube videos that Ed and his husband Steve were making together, which documented basically the process of Ed creating this persona, and all of these amazing performances that Mrs. Kasha Davis was doing for video before RuPaul's Drag Race even existed. And so I had this kind of incredible archive of archival footage from their life together. And so I started to think about how that could kind of form the foundation for exploring who Ed Popel was and how Mrs. Kasha Davis came into being, especially thinking about what drag culture was like in the suburbs before there was a RuPaul's Drag Race. Sorry, I'm like you.
No.
Okay. Okay, and then when I got on the ground in Rochester, something that was really important to me was I wasn't just shooting Mrs. Kasha Davis, and I wasn't just shooting Ed and his husband. That I really wanted to get embedded in this Rochester queer performance community. As a performance curator and a performance artist myself, I really felt like something that's kind of missing for me in the narrative of RuPaul's Drag Race is how community-oriented performance is, and that for every person who gets onto RuPaul's Drag Race, there's a whole community of people, a very intersectional community, a community of many ages, which is maybe in conflict with the way that reality TV celebrates like individual icons who just appear out of nowhere. So it was really important for me that being a part of the community and getting embedded in the stories of not just Mrs. Kasha Davis, but all of her collaborators, her drag sisters, and people who didn't get on the show. It was an essential part of my process.
What about Mrs. Kasha Davis drew you? Because you said that you were really drawn to her. And what really drew you to her?
Well, I think as someone had been watching RuPaul's Drag Race, sometimes the way that femininity is performed, or the way that performances of famous women are performed, sometimes they border on a form of caricature that could be perceived as insulting to women. There's terminology that's being used that specifically talks about women's body parts in a way that could be uncomfortable to a lot of women. And something I loved about Mrs. Kasha Davis was that it was so clear that her persona was coming from a deep place of love and respect and admiration for women in her life who had struggled, women that she looked up to who had, who'd faced challenges often related to the, cultural pressures that are put on women. As a feminist media artist, that seeing somebody with that kind of vision for who she wanted to embody, was amazing for me to see, and I wanted to know so much more. So that's where the rabbit hole began.
That was awesome. What did you learn about yourself professionally and personally while making this film? Because you are embedded in this Rochester community, but you are a big fan or curator of this performance art. So what did you learn about yourself that you did not know?
Such a good question. And it's a tough question. What did I learn about myself in this process that I didn't know about before? I dove headfirst into this project. It's my first feature-length documentary film.
You jumped in the deep end of the swimming pool, right?
Yes. And, I'd done a lot of narrative video game works and performances and theater works, but this was so different. The film industry, it's such a different way of working. It's so very collaborative, but also, there's just so many components that I just had to learn. Like, how do we do post-production? How do I fundraise? Like, just every step of the way, I had to continue to learn, the protocols and conditions of the entire film field. So I think something that I learned about myself is that I was so committed to telling this story in a way that was both critical and generous, that allowed for the people who are being documented to have some agency over their stories, or feel like this representation was affirming to them, while also showing moments for Mrs. Kasha Davis that were incredibly low, that were very dark, that a lot of other entertainers would not be comfortable showing in a totally empty audience at a show that they were really excited to do, or being booked on a tour that basically makes fun of old queens. And I think through the process of making this film, we developed such a trust and a closeness, and it's just it felt like a way of working that's very unique to this medium. And I learned that I think part of my art making process involves, sorry, this answer sucks. I'm doing terribly. It's such a hard question.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So, documentaries can be slanted in any direction, because documentaries lend itself to do that. You talked about, showing Mrs. Kasha Davis at a very low point. So talk to me about how important it was to show not only the successes and the happy parts, but the failures and the disappointments. Because what I found in this documentary is that's what made this documentary, was this was not all Candyland or fairy tale land, that this was real life. and these disappointments and these, I wouldn't say failures, but these disappointments were real.
Yeah.
So talk to me, how important was that? And did Ed Paul, Mrs. Kasha Davis, did they kind of push back, or were they like, yes, film these moments, keep it rolling?
Yeah. There's so much pressure for these performers who end up on RuPaul's Drag Race to continue to show, often through social media, how amazing their career is right now, how they're getting all of these shows, how the show has, catapulted them into this new entertainment industry career, and it's so exciting, and they're so thankful. And Mrs. Kasha Davis is the first person who will consistently say, I'm so #grateful for all of these opportunities, because she is truly extraordinarily grateful. It definitely changed her life.
She's genuine, and that's what I loved about
genuine.
her. I fell in love with her because she's genuine.
Yes.
She's someone that I want to hang out with and get to know. And yeah, go on with your thought. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I at first, when we were first filming together, every time she'd think the camera was on, she would turn to it and be like, "Hello, I'm Mrs. Kasha Davis, and we're at beautiful Blackfriars Theater, and today we're going to be," and I was just like, oh, she's going to do this every time. Like, I was just like, oh, she's like she's like, I'm the narrator of my own life story documentary, and like, I have to tell you exactly where you are all the time. And at first I thought that was amazing. I wanted to just make a film of all of those intros. But at a certain point I had to say, I have a lot of that kind of footage and it's amazing. But one of the things that I feel like I can do as a filmmaker and we can do working together is kind of peel back that facade and offer a look at what this life that you're currently going through as a result of being on the show really looks like. And sometimes that meant, turning off some of the lights and actually shooting in the basement with the bad, overhead lighting. And sometimes that meant following her when she knew that there was not an audience out there. There were technical issues. She was introduced with the wrong name. Mispronunciations of her name constantly. And, in the beginning, she would be like, oh, I hope that doesn't make it in the film, or can you cut that out, or can you just make it look like there were more people, or can you make a tight crop around that audience? And I had to be trust me with this. Those lows are going to make the moments where you are being honored in your hometown and where people are celebrating you and you're getting to do the thing that's most fulfilling for you. It's really going to make those moments, people are going to root for you and those moments are really going to be extraordinarily meaningful, and people will be able to see how this sort of dangling carrot trajectory that you're on because of this reality show, that it's up and down, and that you're still working through it. So,
reality shows are really fake. I mean, they're really scripted.
What?
I know. Breaking news.
What a crazy idea.
Let's call Wolf Blitzer here. Anderson Cooper. We have a news story for you. But no, reality shows. Even if you go back to the original reality show of Cops,
oh my God,
we now know that is scripted and edited down. How important was it that she went from a reality show, but you're doing this documentary and showing her the real life? You're showing the real Mrs. Kasha Davis. How important was that to you?
I mean, to me, it was incredibly important. To her, it's been really very affirming, very meaningful. But yeah, for me, I felt like the structure of this reality TV competition show really limits the storytelling potential and the real life stories of everybody who's on it, right? They all have to fit into very specific fast narratives. If you don't fit into one of the story producer storylines, you're not going to last very long.
Right.
And so I was hoping to complicate that as an issue of reality television production, but a documentary can be, an hour and 20 minutes long, which is certainly different from 30 to 40 minutes of reality TV with 17 contestants. So,
congratulations on such a great film. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I think you did very well with showing the highs and the lows.
Oh, thank you so much.
You did a very good job. So, congratulations.